Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey and as always I'm joined by Sam Proof. Welcome Sam. Today on the show we're going to be talking about OBS Studio and some of our favorite tips and tricks. We'd love to hear yours too, so we are going out live to all the various places. I probably had a button on here somewhere for something, but I'm not even going to worry about that right now. Sam, how has your week been? What have you been up to? Anything exciting?
It's going good. I have some potentially early stage reporting on a little bit of a shift of focus where I started since, wow, more segues than a former president. Anyway, because Cute Avalanche is not currently able to foster cats of our own, I've put a lot more focus into some shorts media, some shorts content and stuff like that. And I've basically been putting out at least one video a day for over a week now. Some days I've actually done two. And I'm actually starting to see some interesting numbers happen. It's relatively low in the grand scheme of things, but where I previously had something like 4,000 views for the entirety of the month, I now had that in the last 48 hours. And I have about 4 videos that are active, which for me, for YouTube Shorts specifically, I haven't had a video stay active longer than maybe 48 hours, but you know, like these are like going on to 4 days. And like it was like maybe one video is active and then the next one and then the next one. And this is like 3 or 4 that are overlapping with like actual viewers. And I'm seeing return viewers that are hitting all of the sort of main player videos, if you will, and the comments are actually getting to the point where it's starting to be too many to handle. So I'm like, this is potentially really good. So whereas I may have previously touted quality over quantity, I may have to rethink that. How's everything with you?
Everything's going okay with me. It is interesting because some of those things, and I'm just... this is a terrible insight into my brain, but I was literally waiting for our first comment to appear because I was a little concerned we weren't actually live. But hello to Saeed. Thank you for being here. If Saeed's not here, like we probably shouldn't even bother doing the show. But yes, no, everything's going okay with me. I don't know that I have anything terribly exciting to share at the moment, but it is kind of interesting. Every now and then, some old video, some old YouTube short will kind of get a life of its own, and it's not even really particularly obvious to me, and admittedly the algorithm is a bit of a black box and we don't necessarily understand any of that, but occasionally there'll just be some really trivial thing that I shared like a year ago that suddenly will get all this attention, and I don't really understand why. But anyway, so today we're talking all about OBS Studio, and it's going to be a pretty free-form show this week. We're just going to share whatever tips sort of occur to us, but we do want to kind of hear from you in the audience as well. It'd be great to have your contributions as well. And hello to Ileana. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you for being here. So Sam, I guess, you know, there's lots of different things that we can do with OBS, but I guess before we get into it, why do you like this software? I should probably give you a moment to finish drinking whatever it is you're drinking before I ask you the question, so I'll just fill in for time. But why OBS?
No, it's I'm good. I'm good. I think there's a good delay between us today, unfortunately. I love OBS, and I'll tell you why. Aside from the fact that it is straight out free software that will do whatever you could possibly want, that whatever you could possibly want is like exponentially larger than any of the other sort of paid browser-based softwares out there. There are a few softwares that do compare more or less to OBS one way or another. Like vMix has a lot of similarities in a lot of ways, but it's free and it's open source. So if it ever gets to a point where you're like, man, I wish this thing would do this, somebody can make that happen. And in today's world of like, John's going to hate this part, AI, that somebody could actually be you at this point. Like if you have a rudimentary amount of knowledge to kind of guide it to where it needs to go, you can make some good things happen. Plugins are a little harder than scripts. I personally have not taken on the task of trying to make my own plugin, but I have made some scripts that do some interesting little things in my OBS broadcaster. It's just it's malleable and it's super powerful, and that's why I like it.
Absolutely. And look, we often talk about this on the show that a lot of people think it's hard and scary, and admittedly it can do a lot. And the thing I try to remind people is you don't need it to do a lot. Like most people can be very easily satisfied with this with just a handful of features. So I'm just gonna jump over and share this for a second, because I do and Saeed did say something about seeing something about StreamYard raising their prices. That's a whole other rant. I can tell you about that later if you like, Saeed. But anywho, this is OBS. This is a bit of a black box. And I guess the first thing I just wanted to tell you, if you don't like the dark interface, is you can go into the settings and you can adjust the appearance. So we have different things called themes and styles. And if I try one of these other styles, you'll see that one's sort of just as black. There's classic, which I actually kind of like classic. There's gray, and there's light. So admittedly, I know lots of people that don't like light interfaces, and I don't mind dark interfaces, but I do find that they all sort of look the same to me after a certain amount of time. So, it's sort of picking one that works for you. I probably will stick with the default just because it's probably what everyone's going to see. But I just wanted to give you a sense of what this looks like, and it has a number of different parts. And admittedly, the things you will see will depend a little bit on the plugins and other things that you've got open. So I've got the vertical options over here. I'm actually just going to get rid of that for the moment. I'm going to hide the vertical scenes and sources. It's a really fun thing, but again, I'm not going to worry about that too much for the moment. If you do actually you've got other docs that you want to sort of rearrange on the screen, you can come and find them from here, and you can click on them. And the great thing about this is you can sort of drag and drop them, and they will sort of dock into place, which can be quite useful. I know there's other software that every window is its own separate window, and I personally don't love that, but admittedly, some people may. So, I mean, that's kind of up to you. But let's go back here.
Yeah, I think along the lines of sort of customizing the docs really quick, just to point it out, because you were talking about kind of adding new ones, all of the preset docs that are there, you can pop those out. You can rearrange those as well. You can also leave them floating, kind of like John was just talking about with other softwares do. You could just have those floating if you wanted. You wanted to separate them to different monitors and whatnot. And one of the things that I really like to do is you can also sort of drag one directly on top of another one, and it will make a tabbed interface so that dock is still there, but you can tell between it and another dock if it's something that you don't always use, but you want quick access to. So I think that's really important to know as well.
And I think like that was actually already the case, I think. So if I bring back the vertical sources, for example, and I drag this one over here, you'll see that now we have the sources and the vertical sources. So you can sort of rearrange them in that way. Again, I'm not too worried about the vertical sources at the moment, but the other thing that Sam sort of alluded to is that I can grab these and sort of rearrange them wherever I like. And I guess the thing that we hear from a lot of people who are starting out is, what do I actually do if I've only got a single screen? And this can be the point at which you can get quite creative about where you put things and how they relate to each other. I probably, to be honest, I don't really care about the scene transitions, although interestingly, it doesn't look like that's one I can turn off. So that's interesting. But anyway,
that is one of the ones that I prefer to tab under the controls, because yeah, I also don't typically need to hit the scene transitions. You pretty much set that up when you're creating your scene selection. You're like, I'm going to use this transition, and then you just let it go. There's not a lot of on the fly needing to go, oh no, I'm going to want to do a fade right now, so I better you know, make that happen.
And Saeed said essentially the same thing. So I do this with the scene transitions. You only need them once a year. It is interesting because I think transitions can be quite fun. And like, I think by default, you only sort of get cut and fade, but you can sort of get other plugins and have stinger transitions and all kinds of stuff. And it's one of those things that I remember when I started on YouTube, like you'd often have different pieces of software with fun transitions, and people would just use 3,000 really obvious, not subtle at all transitions in their thing, and it would just become distracting. So that's something you've got to keep in mind. Sayed also says, what I like is that you can put docs on top of each other. They are then like tabs, which is also what Sam said. Hello to Business Growth Ready. I'm not sure. Okay. So Business Growth Ready writes, StreamYard marketing department went on SpaceX rocket. Now they have sky-high price increases. Okay, yeah. So, like, StreamYard have been purchased by another company. I think we've spoken about this on the show, but it's a company called Bending Spoons. All it does is acquires products that have subscriptions, have subscribers who are paying monthly fees, and it just increases the amounts quite substantially. The interesting thing was, and I was on Chantel Hill's live stream a couple of weeks ago, I want to say now. And the thing that she discovered is that if you start a new email address, it'll offer you cheaper prices than if you continue your current subscription. So we don't really recommend StreamYard anymore, but I guess if you were interested in doing that, then you know that's something to perhaps consider. But it all got very, very weird very, very quickly. So yes.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of a mess over there, and maybe they'll see the error of their ways, and probably they won't, and the software will suffer, and eventually we'll just be limited to other browser-based studios that are out there.
And I guess the thing, though, that company has purchased a lot of popular software, and you can talk to any of their users and find out how quickly they bailed when it just fell apart, because it seems like they've also fired a substantial amount of their workforce. It seems like developers are going away. I'm seeing comments on LinkedIn that are just begging for technical support and getting nowhere at all. So it's I can't really recommend them right now.
Let's stay on
okay, so Ileana writes, for your information, Department of Labor has released AI user standards. That's potentially quite a good thing to know. And again, if you're new here, I should just say, like, I'm not a fan of generative AI, and it kind of hurts my soul a little bit every time I see it in action. And I probably shouldn't beef with Sam live on the show, but he did this thing where he released this AI podcast episode on a feed with artwork that had my face on it. And I'm like, this just hurts my soul. Please make it go away, or at least label it as such.
I did forget about the default cover. I have since replaced that. That was changed. I think what a good side note here is I'd be really curious to see what the standards that the Department of Labor has released is, because Twitter just made a big announcement that anyone who has a Twitter account will now default into, well, I don't think you can opt out. You just default into giving all of your info to Grok and all of that nonsense. So there's another company that might be losing a whole lot of followers now as well. It's a lot of big moves happening, and it's like the regulations need to catch up quick.
Absolutely. And I guess the big thing about the AI stuff is, first of all, if you're creating any, just make sure you label it, make it really obvious. People aren't falling for it anyway. Like, I know there are so many people that are like, I copied and pasted this article from ChatGPT. No one will ever know. And it's like, no, it's obvious from a million miles away that that's what you've done. And I don't think that's particularly great content, but anyway, let's get back onto the topic. Hello to Cher, who's joining us from New Zealand. Gonna keep scrubbing StreamYard subs. They have some handy new features, but we've not really tested any others for our lives yet. And that's the thing. Like, StreamYard is really good software. It's just that the company around it that now owns it is just, they're
Yeah.
doing some highly questionable things. And I don't want to say too much about that. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah. And
Sam, a
if
friend
there's
of
something
yours,
that
Randy,
you,
the
oh, hey,
Randy the
Randy,
Magic Man, is saying long time no see.
good to see you again. Sorry, I'm not doing a board game stream right now, but I wanted to say to share, we'll get you into using OBS eventually. So just let us know what StreamYard does that OBS isn't doing for you, and we'll show you how to make that happen.
It's funny because Cher actually works with and for a LinkedIn expert who co-authored a book, and I've got the other co-author on to OBS using OBS, and she's loving it. So I don't know if I can do that for both of them, but I guess we will see how that plays out. Saeed makes this observation too, which is fortunately in the EU, sorry, you have to actively opt in for everything that is related to using your data. And on the one hand, yes, but I guess the thing anecdotally that I'm seeing online is it doesn't, like, anyone can just go copy your stuff and paste it into any of these tools, and it's a bit of a problem. But anyway, today's not really about AI, so we'll resist that urge. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about OBS in just a second.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. Well, he loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a promo for Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn more about over at cuteavalanche.com. And I should say, too, because I get the feeling there are some people in the chat that might be new, Sam has done a lot with sort of foster kittens and also streaming them online. So if you just need a dose of cute kittens, Cute Avalanche is definitely the place to go. Kiki Bite is saying, oh, those cats are cute. Saeed is saying, I wonder what will happen with John when OBS starts to implement some AI features. I will probably try not to use any of them, but yes, I mean, the thing about AI, and again, we just need to banish this from the show because I'm just going to say the same things every episode. There are some legitimate uses for AI, and the one that I actually really think is quite useful is that there's, and I probably wouldn't even describe this as AI so much as machine learning, but there are actually audio plugins, VST plugins that will actively listen to and remove background noise, for example. I think stuff like that is really cool. What I don't love is when people just stop putting themselves in their own content. Like they get something to generate an image of themselves, and that's its whole other rant because, you see these 50-year-old YouTubers and they look like they're 14 in their AI generated thumbnails. It's so freaking weird. But anyway, so Kiki's saying, yes, I'm very new, just heard of the word OBS. Okay, well, it's great to have your company here today.
Let's get back into OBS. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Sam, do you have a tip to share with us?
We were talking about transitions before we went on all of the side rants there and and all that. And I think I just wanted to say kind of one of the reasons why I just hide that sort of scene transition doc in the first place is that once you become a slightly more advanced user, you can use things like the Move Transition plugin or the Advanced Scenes feature, which will kind of let you just kind of assign specific transitions to different scenes so that you're not even paying attention to it. You don't need to use that doc at all. So that's just one of those things. Now, I don't know if that's a tip so much as just a look forward to doing this in the future as you're planning things out on your project. Yeah. I think another sort of big tip for beginning users is kind of when you're first getting started and you're putting things into place and you get your camera in, or you're putting some media in. You always want to kind of move it around or like zoom in, do different things. And there's lots of different ways to kind of achieve the placement you want. But something that I didn't learn for months and months and months was that if you just want to do some quick cropping on, especially like your camera, if you're like a game streamer and you want to be like a small picture in a picture at the bottom, you can just hold that Alt key down and click on the binding box around the video, and it will crop in as opposed to shrinking the dimensions.
Nice. And I'm sort of madly doing some stuff in the background that hopefully I can demonstrate some of this as well. So I guess the thing about OBS, and I will just finish what I'm doing and then I'll come in and actually share my screen so you can see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's complaining that I'm not doing it right. So, all right, cool. Let's go to OBS. I'll share my screen. I'll make myself a little bit larger here. So the thing about OBS is that we have scenes and sources and scene collections. And I guess that's kind of the tip that I wanted to start with, is that scene collections are really, really awesome. Sam might even talk to profiles in a little bit, but to be really honest with you, I never use profiles. I never, ever use profiles. What I do use a lot of is scene collection.
I think I have 20.
So the thing about scene collections is that like each one of these can be for different projects, for different podcasts, for different video creation styles. They can be for businesses and brands and side projects. And essentially, you can come in and actually duplicate these. You can rename them. You can remove them. You can import and export them. So importing and exporting is something I need to do with my main OBS shortly. Because I've got an exciting new laptop. That's something I forgot to tell you guys. I've got a new laptop.
Nice.
So that's cool. But essentially, the thing I really want to call out is just that these things are sorted in alphabetical order. And the thing, I'm a bit of a control freak, so I like to have these organized. And admittedly, this is just the demo version of OBS. This is not the version I use normally, so there's not a lot in here. But putting numbers in like 0001 podcast, and that will help you organize them. I know Saeed is actually a fan of putting in different emojis in here, which is probably which is another approach, which is really interesting to me. But essentially, yes, and Cher's excited for my new laptop, which I am too. And it was funny, they shipped it out and a new laptop bag, and I got the new laptop bag on Friday, and I had to wait the whole weekend before the laptop itself actually appeared. But anyway. Saeed is saying too that he's got different profiles for full HD, 4K, and different recording qualities. So, I mean, that's good. I must admit, I just default to whatever I've set up originally. That's just how I roll. And I do, and Saeed also uses different profiles, I think, for recording vertically, which I use the Atom plugin. But essentially, what we can do here is if we've got different scenes, and it could be that I'm going to come in and rename this, and I'll say John. And again, I'm just using a static image. Okay, I've already used that as a source name, so I'll say, if I remember how to rename things, so I'll say John only. And I've just got an image here as sort of a stand-in for me because I'm already using my camera. And although I do have other cameras, I didn't want to deal with that complexity. And I think the thing that like Sam sort of alluded to is if you bring in different sources, and it could be the video capture device if you bring in your webcam or your video capture device, if you've got a capture card or a cam link or something like that. We've got images, we've got image slideshows. We can bring in media sources. So if you've got video or audio to play, you can do that as well. You can actually bring in other scenes, which is really cool. Text is a good one. I've got a color source in here, so that's literally just a color. And I can sort of go back in here and change the color if I wanted to. So maybe I want that one as a background. Admittedly, I'm in front of the green screen 24/7, so it's usually important that I have something in the background here. But getting back to what's and again, this was this is actually a tip that Saeed told me, which I kind of already knew, but I think it's worth explaining because often you don't know these little things until you need them. So if we right click into the canvas, we've got this thing called preview scaling, and by default it's usually scaled to window, which is great. But if you go and right click on that and change it to canvas, you can actually hold down, I think it's the space bar, and then with the cursor, the mouse scroll wheel, you can sort of zoom in and zoom out, which can be really, really useful. And like in that example, I didn't realize that this image wasn't at the bottom of the frame, so that's probably the first thing I would have done was bring this down. We can also increase the size of this. So the alt thing is interesting too, because that's cropping. So again, because I'm in front of a green screen and my green screen doesn't cover my entire background, I do need to crop it, and I hold down the alt and bring that in. Again, another thing that I just didn't know until I accidentally fell upon it was that you can click up here and you can just sort of move this around in any position you like. And those things are all really cool. But the other thing I would suggest you explore is if we right click on our source, we have the transform options, and there are so many cool things in here that you can do automatically: fit to screen, stretch to screen, center to screen, and you can go in and edit the transform as well. And again, I'm a bit of a control freak, so I love working with these numbers. So you can sort of decide where you want it. So maybe if I wanted it, I don't know, over here, I can adjust that as well. I can change the positioning of all of that. Yep.
This is really good if you're doing like a really complex layout and you've done like a template in something like Photoshop where you have a very specific, squares laid out or whatever. And I'm losing my mind on what that term is. It's not mask, but along those lines, and you just need to fill a very specific space, and you know what those measurements are from creating the template in the first place. So having sort of microscopic detail of how to place something is really awesome. Another thing I want to say is when you're doing that, and if you have multiple monitors, you can right click on that scene and project it to a second monitor so you can kind of see a larger version of what you're working on, and pixel down until you get it to the right spot.
Absolutely. And I will just check in with the comments a little bit. I'm a little concerned actually about this one. So Kiki writes, during the install, I am at OBS Studio wants access to your Google account. It sounds like an okay thing. I'm setting up OBS with my YouTube or Google account and want to do live streams. Okay, cool. So I think what that actually is you're sort of connecting it to YouTube as a destination, which is good.
Yeah. So
I
was going to say, so what this does, obviously this allows OBS to access your YouTube account. And then when you go to create a live stream, you can actually do that from within OBS. You don't have to set that up in YouTube already, or if you have, you'll still be able to access that from OBS as well. But you can do all of that sort of scheduling for the live stream in advance through OBS directly. It'll let you schedule broadcast, manage broadcast, start broadcast, basically. So that's what that does.
Sure. And Cher writes that I love using emojis to relate information back to what it's being used for. And Saeed actually has his own system too. So he uses... so he actually uses different emojis to differentiate between scenes and sources, which is interesting. I guess getting back to the thing I said about the scene collection originally, though, is... much of the reason I use those numbers is so I can order them in such a way, and I don't know. It'd be really interesting to know how different emojis would at the beginning of those names actually bring up the order. But that's interesting.
I would probably in as long as we're talking about profiles and scene collections, because I do the number thing as well. I would probably opt to put those emojis at the end just to give a quick, visual reference of like, oh, that's the cat stream, that's the coffee morning stream, that's, a microphone, that means me and John or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great tip. I also like the differentiating of scene and source for people who, just are dead set on using the same name. Because every once in a while, yes, that does happen. And I'm like, oh, I've already used that. Those are both great tips. I learned stuff.
And I should say too, like, it's really quite useful to give your scenes and sources meaningful names so you know what they are. But at the end of the day, you're likely the only person that'll ever need to know what they're called. So as long as they make sense to you, you have our blessing to do whatever you like. So Cher's going to install OBS and start having a bit of a play and see what's what. And I guess, like, at some point we probably do need to make some, or I will definitely make some more beginner friendly content for OBS, because I feel like there are some very nerdy people in our audience that we love them and we're happy to speak to that sort of stuff, but I think we need to bring other people along for the ride. Business Growth Ready is asking about the laptop MSI with bag. It's and I'm assuming you mean the company MSI. It's not from MSI. It was from a different company, Aftershock PCs in Melbourne, and they're not a sponsor or anything. That's just who I purchased it from. But it's good to have, and it's quite fun. And I'm sort of looking for different ways to incorporate it into all the various things that I do. So, this is a great comment too. So, Business Growth Ready says you will need to request the live stream capability from YouTube, and you will need to wait 24 hours for the first time.
Yeah, if you haven't opted into live streaming on your channel, you have to go onto YouTube and into your settings, and Google that. If you, I don't remember the pathway to do that all. But yeah, just Google that if you haven't already gotten approved. I wanted to say, since we were talking about profiles and all of that, and you mentioned how you have one and I have like 20. So kind of along the lines of what Saeed was saying, where he does a lot that are based on resolution. I'm a multi-streamer. I do a lot of different platforms. So I have profiles that specifically go to a bunch of single platforms, as well as my multicasting software or service. So one of the things you should know about the profiles is that it stores the stream key, the ingest URL, the overall dock experience of your OBS. So if I change from my Sam and John show to my record only thing, it's going to have a very different experience as far as what docks are out there. If I go to my Twitch direct, it's going to show me like my Twitch chat, my Twitch stats, and some other stuff. If I go to YouTube, similarly, it'll swap out those docs for YouTube based docs. So I do have specific profiles for Twitch and YouTube because they have their own testing environments. So if I ever have an issue and I want to go in and try and replicate something and see what's going on, I want to do that, without going public. So I'll quickly switch over to one of those. Like I said, I have one that is record only, so I'm not intended to stay much higher sort of resolution and bit rate that it's recorded to, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I have a bunch of different profiles.
Mm-hmm. And Said says there are YouTube videos about how to do it. There certainly are, but wouldn't you prefer to hear them from me? Wouldn't that just be
sure.
Wouldn't that just be wonderful, Saeed? Not that Saeed needs it, but and she's saying be prepared for a million questions. I'm very happy to take questions actually, so just hit me up.
Do it.
All right, we're gonna go and we'll come back and talk some more about some different OBS things in just a moment. This is the Video and Live Streaming Show.
Hi, I'm John Lacey, and in Build a Presentation Muscle, I want to talk about finding your voice, refining and sharing your message, using tools and technology to share that message, and looking after yourself as a creator.
And that's a promo for my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, the podcast about showcasing your expertise through content creation, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. And this is kind of funny. Kiki is apparently live literally right now, and apparently our audio is on their stream. So I guess let's talk about audio.
That's a we could go over. Yeah, let's do that.
So I'm just gonna head back to OBS for a second. Make myself full screen. So over here we should have the audio mixer, and again, if you don't see that, just go to the docs and make sure you've selected audio mixer over here. Depending on what sources you have, different things will appear here. So I'm going to go unhide all. And in this case, I don't have anything at all. So this is probably a me thing. But by default, you will often have two audio sources here. One is sort of a microphone, and one of them is the desktop audio. So let me just see what I would normally do and personally, the first thing I do is I will actually go in and get rid of those because I don't like them. I don't want to work that way. But essentially, what you probably have and you can do this too. So whatever microphone you've got connected to your computer, you can go in and add a new audio capture, audio input capture. And in this case, I'll just call it microphone. And it's just going to probably be the default, or in this case, I'll just go the Rodecaster stereo, which is what my Mac comes in through here. You'll see already we've got a volume and we're good to go. So you'll probably have another one called audio output capture. And I'm just going to say desktop audio. And I think by default, I don't know. So I mean, it doesn't have anything at the moment, but I guess what I would recommend, first of all, please don't stream our content. That's very annoying. So go in and if you see this desktop audio, just click that mute button because that'll actually broadcast anything that your computer can hear, and that can be a problem. And often that can be a problem because you might also have your own YouTube stream open somewhere, and then you'll just have this really annoying loop. But once you've got the microphone settings here, actually, here it's pretty good. So I'm hitting the yellow. We kind of want to stay out of the red, but we kind of want to be here in the. And Kiki's saying that that audio helped. Yep, cool. All right. So essentially, what we can do, and again, I'll get Sam to talk about this. So I'll put you back on screen. But you have a little trick when it comes to the audio mixer, and maybe you can describe it, and I will demonstrate it.
Yeah, so if you find that you have a lot of audio feeds coming in the mixer, as I do, and you just need to be able to see things more, or you just don't like that particular layout, you can right-click on your audio mixer, and you can switch it to the vertical layout, and then you can also go into any particular audio feed and click on the three dots. And then if it's one that you don't plan on using, you can just hide it. And then likewise, you can right click on there and unhide all, or click on the three dots and unhide all and get all of those back so that you can be like, oh, I hid the wrong one. I need to find that again. So that's really useful so that your mixer isn't just full of 100 feeds of nothing.
Absolutely. And I guess the only thing I would say is make sure you mute that before you hide it unless you really want it to be there. I guess if you do have any kind of live audio, it would be a good idea to have it where you can monitor it. So that's a good thing. And I must admit, like I wasn't picking on Kiki. I'm just saying as a general rule, don't go around accidentally sharing things
we
because
know you're just getting started.
Because I guess the other thing too is, if you're listening to music and that music goes out on the stream, and you'll get hit by copyright infringement very, very quickly.
So I was going to say, so I found Kiki's stream and it's just black. Let's show her how to add some sources, like a video and maybe some media.
Okay, cool. All right, let's do that then. And Kiki's writing, I mean, your content is good and I do want to share it, just not steal it. Well, we appreciate that. All right, let's go back to my screen share then. So here, I guess the first thing is if you do actually want to share your webcam, and this is going to be a little difficult for me because I don't think I've got anything connected to show you, but let me talk you through it conceptually. If you go down to the add source option, you've got the video capture device. So here we can sort of come in here and say, we can call this whatever you like. And again, it doesn't matter what you call it, but it's useful if you know what it is. So if I called it webcam, for example, and click OK, we would get our options. So here, any device that is accessible, it's sort of defaulted to my cam link. I'm using my cam link already, so it can't actually see this. I mean, what I could do, this will be stupid OBS Inception, so I'll do this temporarily and we'll turn it off again. But if I go OBS Virtual Camera, you'll see that we've got the inception. But essentially, we can do that. If I had a different webcam associated here, I could certainly turn that on. The other thing too is that if you wanted to change the resolution, so maybe if your camera isn't coming up 1920 by 1080 and you know it's supported here, we can click in custom. You can actually go to the drop down and just pick that from the options. The thing about the audio, and this is one of those things that, and there's a whole bunch of different options. So if you need to flip it vertically, if it's showing the wrong way, you can do that. But the thing about this that I think is really worth calling out, because I know it's a little bit confusing, is the capture audio options. So by default, a lot of webcams actually do support audio, but you probably don't want to use them because the audio, the microphone built into it's probably going to be some distance away. It's probably going to capture more of your room noise than it's going to capture you. So what you can do is essentially go down and select this use custom audio device, and then I can sort of go in and select if I had a USB webcam or some microphone, sorry. I could actually select that from the list. And in this case, I've kind of, I don't know that's, did I select that properly? Maybe I didn't. Let me just go back in for a second. I've got that there, but maybe because it's already in use, I can't use it twice. So let me just get rid of this, this microphone. And that's the thing, you kind of want to use one or two of those one of the two approaches there. So if I go back in here and just go, and maybe it's because I don't actually have a real webcam to use right now, and that may also be an issue. But theoretically, we would have our audio here and it would be good to go. So again, it's one of those things, I know lots of people love multi-camera setups, but I physically can't find a good place to put one in my setup that isn't already sort of in the line of sight of another. So let's just check out these comments. Saeed is like, live reaction streams to a stream might become a thing. The only thing I dislike more than AI is actually reaction videos. So don't get me started, Saeed. All right. Good points about the copyright stuff. Cool, I'm getting video to stream.
Great.
Who is that one guy who uses the microphone of Logitech webcams? Why is this still a thing in 2024? This is another rant. I don't know. I'm so triggered by everything today. It's ridiculous. I actually have a webcam from Logitech, and I don't want to use it anymore because if I plug it in, if there's something wrong with my main camera, my entire system wants to default to that audio as the input capture device, and it's awful. Yeah. And we've done entire shows and we've got to the end of it and realized that we've used the worst audio known to man, like the $30 audio as opposed to the $1,000 audio. And it's incredibly frustrating. It's so frustrating. Anywho. So, I mean, conceptually that's that. And maybe I'll make a proper video about how to do that. But that's essentially how we want to roll. But I guess, Sam, getting back to streams, if we did have a new streamer, what kind of scenes do you think might be worthwhile setting up for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what the vision of their stream is. If they're a game streamer, we're clearly going to want like a full screen of the game with probably a picture of them and a full screen of them talking. Potentially some sort of intro starting soon screen and some sort of thanks for watching screen. If you're doing something like a podcast or educational, you might need a screen that has a guest camera, kind of like what you see with me and John right now, and then individual full screens for each of those participants, as well as the aforementioned starting soon and thanks for watching screen. And yeah, I mean, that's really all you need. You may also want some sort of, if you're doing educational stuff, some sort of screen that is like a picture-in-a-picture on top of whatever you're presenting. If you are doing screen capture or a slideshow, which you can do as screen capture, or using the built-in slide functionality of OBS's media playlist. So you could do that a bunch of different ways. But yeah, I think those are the basic scenes you would want. And then if you want to go crazy, you add a bunch of effects to a screen called bunch of effects and just have like the Matrix and then trails and all of the stuff exploding. I don't know what. Yeah, no, you don't need that.
Seed recommends the use of the OMG
The
panic scene.
Sure. Yeah.
And Kiki's trying to get a video to loop. So let's talk about that, because I think that's definitely worth discussing. So let me share my screen again.
Easy peasy.
So I guess the other thing
while
too.
John's doing that, nope, he's already doing it. Go on. I would just differentiate that. You have multiple ways of bringing media in. One is the media source, which can do images or video. But you also have a VLC playlist, which can loop a bunch of videos. So depending on what your intention is, you want to choose one or the other of those.
And so getting back to what Sam was describing, so you do need to actually install the VLC player on your computer, the VLC media player, to get this source. But we do also have the default media source in here too. So essentially what we can do is we can add this in, and I will say video, very imaginative title, but there's literally a loop option just here. But what I can do is I can go and find a file. I never have anything prepared for this sort of thing, but if we go into Camtasia, I don't know. Let's go in here. So I can bring in my video. I can say, like, do I want it to loop or not? Do I want it to restart when it becomes active? That's quite a useful thing. I can say whether I want to use hardware encoding and whatnot. There is a speed option. I probably would never actually change that. I know some people love sped up audio and in video, but that's just not me. But essentially what I can do now is if I go OK, you'll see it sort of starts playing automatically. And I can go in here in the audio mixer, and if I click on those three dots and go to advanced audio properties, this is where we can change the audio of the video. And I think the thing I would note about this is because this is being compressed and normalized, it's actually hitting the red quite dramatically. I'd probably go in here and just add a minus 6 dB. And I think that'll probably help a little bit there too. We also have these audio monitoring options. So this is incredibly useful. So at the moment, it's saying monitor off. And in this context, it essentially means that the video recording or the live streaming, depending on what you're doing with OBS, is hearing the audio, but I'm not. Whereas if I went to monitor and output, I would hear that as well. And I realize you guys can't hear that, but that's okay. Trust me on that one. I'm going to turn that off because it's essentially me talking in the background, which is kind of confusing and annoying in this context. But we do also have monitor off. So this basically just means that we shouldn't actually hear it, although monitor only. So yeah, I will hear it. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. And sometimes chat notifications will sort of ding when you get a new message. And again, that's another thing I don't personally enjoy as a viewer, but you might find useful there. So the great thing about this is, and you'll see here that this will actually show you how far into the video we are. If I go back to a different scene now, and maybe this is my webcam and it's saying hello and welcome, and then I go to my next scene, because I've actually turned on that restart playback when source becomes active. This starts at the beginning of the video, which is quite useful. And again, you could loop that as well if you wanted to. That's another great way of doing it. If I just I'm going to get rid of that one for the moment. The other thing that Sam sort of alluded to was that we do have this VLC video source. And it's very, very similar. But the great thing about this, and again, I probably should have given it a more meaningful name. But the great thing about this is you can actually have a playlist of different media. So you can come into the playlist and you can say add files or add a directory. So if you've got like 15 different videos in a directory and you just want to play them, that's a way of doing it. So that can be really, really useful as well.
Yeah, and that playlist lets you both loop and shuffle that media. So depending on what your needs are, you might want to enable or disable those.
And Saeed makes this great point. Never try to monitor your mic with wireless headphones. It will drive you crazy. And that's the thing. You know, you'll hear yourself in delay, and the delay is probably quite subtle, but it'll sound like you've got a bit of reverb on you. And again, wireless technology makes me nervous at the best of times, because there's always that chance that it'll disconnect at an inappropriate time. And Kiki's saying, yes, the playlist is definitely something to be explored as well. All right, awesome. Yeah. So we will we'll go and come back in just a second, and we'll explore some more of these things. But if you do have any questions, if you do have any tips you want to share, let us know in the chat. We'd love to hear from you.
Hey gang, if you need help running a live stream or optimizing your YouTube channel, get in touch with me. I can help you get set up with live streaming, operate your stream, strategize your YouTube channel, and so much more. Hit me up at samproof.tv, and I'll talk to you soon.
And if you do need those live production services, you can definitely reach out to Sam. Head over to samproof.tv. It was so funny. I almost felt bad going to the promo at that point in time, because there was, you know, the cat was really putting on a great show that the audience completely missed, unfortunately. But there we go. Some cat content for you. Some sort of AMSR purring channel is probably the thing that you need to do next, Sam. But anyway, this is the video on live streaming show. We're talking all about OBS Studio and some of our tips and tricks. One thing, I won't try to demonstrate this, but I just want to mention too, I'm kind of using two different versions of OBS today, and this is something I do a lot because I'm demonstrating OBS, but I'm also using OBS at the same time. And the thing about that, and there's a couple of different ways of actually doing this, but I kind of run this portable second version of OBS on my computer, so I can demonstrate things without sort of interfering with the version I'm using to go live or record in. And if you want to learn more about that, I do have an article over on johnlacey.com that'll show you how to do that. Sam, I guess, do we have any other tips, anything that you want to talk about or explore?
I mean, you know, like we said at the very beginning, OBS is extremely customizable. So there's an entire world of plugins and scripts that you can use to do a bunch of different things. You know, John mentioned the vertical streaming plugin that he had briefly, that he was closing out of his tabs for, so that you can actually do a typical landscape stream as well as a vertical stream simultaneously, and or use that to record a vertical version. One of my favorite things is the advanced scene switcher that lets you just add a bunch of automated functionality and or macros, which we should mention that OBS has hotkeys. If you're not familiar, you just go into your settings and it will have all of these predefined areas that you can set up a hotkey for, and then you just enter what that key is that you would like. You can connect that to like a Stream Deck and just make that a much more, you know, fluid use. Saeed asks, throw that up.
What's the most super basic thing about OBS?
About OBS you just recently learned recently? Wow. I don't know the last time I learned something new aside from just Saeed's labeling method, with emojis, which might be the thing. I've been learning to use the Move plugin, which John's been on for a while, but I haven't had the time to sit down with it. And every time I do, I'm like, but I have to relearn the things I learned 5 months ago.
And I should say too, like the Move
plugin has a lot to...
The Move plugin is something that has a lot of power, and again, it can be very simple. You can literally just have it as a transition style, but it's kind of the thing that when I go full screen, that's a move action. When I go screen share, that's another move action, and it also sort of toggles the visibility of my screen share over here as well. So that's really, really quite cool, and essentially I do that with a lot of filters. But I guess getting back to Saeed's question, and I kind of already mentioned this, but I had no idea I could grab this handle point and just rotate this. And again, I think I actually messaged Say the day it occurred to me that that was even a thing. I'm like, has this always been a thing, or have I just never noticed? And admittedly, I don't have a lot of use to sort of randomly rotate my sources. Usually I kind of want them in their default position, but that's definitely a thing that you can do. But again, like even and I mention this a lot because and it's probably going to be slightly behind my head there, but even the edit transition, like I love this so much, and I'm a bit of a control freak, and I want to know where my pixels are at. So I will often sort of come in here and get quite granular. And even the bounding box options are really good because, you know, here I've got an image. It's not really going to change very much, but sometimes I will have sort of captions and I'll be like, I really need to make sure that this doesn't go larger than the bounds of the box that I provided. And again, you can sort of test out those options as well. You can change how it's centered. And even just right-clicking and going to the transform options and, like, you know, center to screen is a great one. So, you know, if you want to, although in this case, I think the cropping on my image might be a little off, but essentially here, and this actually, I feel like this was only a few versions of OBS ago that they introduced the pixels sort of showing you where things are in relation to each other. But that in itself is just amazing. I kind of love that so much.
We have some comments.
Okay, so Craig writes, would a portable version of OBS allow for mobile setup on iPad? So OBS Studio won't run on an iPad or a phone, but there are ways of doing this. And we are kind of using one of them at the moment, which is Video Ninja, which will let you use that iPad or phone as its own camera. You won't necessarily be able to, well, I say that, you won't be able to run OBS, but you can actually run almost an entire stream from within video if you're clever enough. So that is a thing that you can do. There's also, what's the Android camera thingy? I can't think of what it's called. I think it's just called Droid Cam. Again, I assume there's probably an iOS equivalent thereof, but you can't really run OBS on iOS. You can run it on an Apple computer. You can run it on Linux. You can run it on Windows. But yeah, and say it sort of makes the point, portable just means no installation in this context. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's just on an external hard drive. I would say the one nice thing about video, just to make it clear, is that you do not have to tether your phone to the computer, whereas with a lot of other software, that's kind of the way it works. So video, you're completely wireless. So I can have my computer running OBS and already streaming, have video set up, and go out and about and randomly pull up my video guest cam link, and it'll broadcast to video, which then goes to a source that is inside of my OBS, and then stream that out, which is something that I do a lot on the kitten cam, or at least we used to when we were doing like a bottle feeding that took place in a different room. We would just go from our phone and film it, and it would go straight to the stream.
I guess the only thing I would say about video is it's not like obviously Sam's video quality is not that crash hot through it at the moment, and we did actually
we've had
do
some
that
issues lately.
We did actually do that Restream Studio stream last week, and I feel like the quality was infinitely better. And there's got to be a setting in there to fix it somewhere. We just haven't found it. So, with all this stuff, it's really worthwhile to test it out ahead of time. Business Growth Ready writes, love the Move plugin, helps reduce the amount of scenes needed when doing training videos. Yes, I love this. And to be really honest with you, and this is a thing, because I think beginners really need lots of different scenes potentially, or at least just different scenes in general. Whereas I think more advanced users can use those Move options. And that's the thing, this scene, whether I sort of make... I can make Sam full screen. I can make myself full screen. I can have a side by side. I can have all of the things. But essentially, this is one single scene in OBS. I'm just rearranging the way that things are presented here. And to be honest, I have like a start scene, I have an end scene, I have the scenes for the video promos we play, but and this tab scene as well, and that's literally it. So again, I completely agree.
I would say a really good thing to do, like I know we kind of went over different possible layouts, but before you actually set up your OBS, whether or not you're just going to use scenes straight out or you're going to use the Move plugin, is draw out what you think those scenes will look like and then try and replicate them. When you start to use the Move plugin, you just start from scratch and replicate it within Move. You don't want to, like, unless you really have a specific need where you want to have scenes and Move, you probably can just do everything you want in the Move plugin, but it takes a bit, it's a little more advanced.
Yeah, and you do need to sort of think that through a little bit. And again, either method is totally fine. So you can definitely do that. Saeed said Video Ninja has an an Android app, by the way. Yes, and I feel like that was where I was going, but I got distracted. But I think they also have an iOS app. I'm pretty sure I saw that during the week. Sure. Yeah. So potentially, you still kind of need somebody on a computer of some description to run OBS itself. But I guess I don't know if you can actually go live out of video, but you can you can set up different scenes, you can feature different people. There's a lot it can do. So if that is something you're interested in, definitely explore it, because you can even just record straight out of video. So if you're just chatting with somebody and you just want to do a simple recording, that's another option. Kiki just discovered that we're streaming multiple videos at the same time, but and that's the thing, like if you do want to practice with this stuff, you don't necessarily need to start streaming. You can do local recordings, you can just play with it on your own computer. But yes, going out live on the video as well. So I mean, that's you've made, considering I don't think you had heard of this software half an hour ago. You're doing pretty well, I would suggest. Right. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So something to keep in mind is that your OBS sources, you'll see, is a list, and they are prioritized by top down. So if your top source takes up the full screen, you're not going to see what's below it, but if it has audio, it will still go out. So there's an eyeball icon to the right of every source. You can just turn those off to see what's going on underneath that, and so on and so forth. If you have any experience with like Photoshop or any other Adobe software, it's the same sort of layer priority.
Yeah, so I mean, here I've got an image of myself and I've got my color source, and if I were to drag my image underneath the color source, you can't see it. So the order of these things is important. You can sort of drag and drop, but you do also have these up and down arrows if you prefer to work in that way. So that can be useful. And I guess getting back to that early discussion about whether, because that's the thing, you can bring in your audio as its own source, or you can attach it to your camera. And in some ways, I think for most people, just attaching it to your camera can be really, really useful. But then if you're in a situation where you don't want your video to be visible, but you still want to hear the audio, you can't just click the eye icon, because that will mute the audio as well. So if that were the case, if you do have something else on top of that, maybe in that scene you could just move the video underneath and it would still be sort of showing up in the audio mixer. Again, I realize this is literally just an image, so you kind of have to take my word for that a little bit, because I don't have a live demonstration to give you, but that is certainly a thing. And I guess the other thing too, let's pull out this scene transition. So again, by default, we have cut or fade, and you'll see what happens when I click on one of these. It sort of, it'll actually just fade ever so gently. You can adjust the time that goes for, so you can make that really long or really short. It's sort of described in milliseconds. We do also have the cut, so that's sort of much more dramatic. So if I go from one to the other, there's no real transition. It just goes from one to the other as well. But I really like the fade. The fade is really elegant. Although there are all kinds of options to do different things, I'm very, very happy with just the fade, because even that is so elegant. And if you're talking to people and that's the other thing too we haven't mentioned, is we have this virtual camera option, which will you just press the button and anything that's happening visually in OBS can be sent out to Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype or Zoom. I said Zoom already. And most software that supports a video camera. So that can be really useful, and that's the thing I like to encourage people, especially business people, think about how they can actually incorporate the personality and the visual branding of their business within their video frame. Okay. Kiki does say something about credit card info. I don't know what that is. I'd be very careful before sharing whatever that is.
I think that's what she's saying. Just don't show your credit card info. Yeah.
Yeah. That is definitely a thing. So like just being mindful that you're not accidentally sharing personal information that you don't want to share. Absolutely. All right. Okay, Said's telling me that if I click the plus option, and this is great, and again, because I kind of default to a lot of things, I don't always know what my other options are. So Said writes, if you click the plus option, you've got the move, the swipe, the slide, the stinger, the fade to color, and the luma wipe. So again, that's really cool. So the move one, let me just, so if I change this to move, and what I'll do, I'm going to duplicate this scene. And I'll just call it John Only 2 because who cares? And I will move the position of this image, which again is kind of a proxy for my webcam. So just imagine that I've moved off to the side, maybe because I want to share something else over here. Now, if I click on that move, because I've got the move transition selected, you'll see that actually moves the source. And all you need to really do is have that move plugin installed. So that in itself is really cool. The stinger is a little bit more elaborate, and it does sort of require that you have a video that you can sort of play between the scenes, but that is really cool. Yeah. Fade to color, luma white. I'm not even sure, but let's try them out. What the hell? Okay, so if I go from here to here, maybe it'll be more dramatic. There we go. So it's sort of a fade based on color a little bit, and fade to color. You can choose the color you want to fade to. So in this case, if I go to that one, it goes to black, which is not my favorite, but it's something you can potentially play with.
Yeah, I've used fade to color pretty much on my zombie stream. It'll flash to red really quick. I set it real fast, so it's just like blah. But yeah, it can be a lot. It's just a whole wall of color. So yeah, I would use that sparingly. But generally, when you're thinking about transitions, you probably only need one, maybe a second one if you have one specific thing that you want to sort of accent, and then at the very most a third one for like, this is the one where we're done, we're leaving, there's an outro coming, here's something special. But yeah, for the most part, most of your transitions should be the same. Like, don't want to overstimulate your audience with like a million crazy transitions unless that is very specific your thing.
Yeah. So I mean, there's always that thing. So Kiki is saying, I'm still live streaming with the OBS Studio. Can I close my YouTube Studio tab while streaming? I wouldn't have thought so, Sam, but have you? Yeah, so
no, you can. It's you don't need that open. There is potentially depending on the stream, I have had weird issues where when I was multicasting and I went to go live, and it's usually with the 24/7 cat cam, where if I've previously been live and I just kind of toggle on and off or off and on, where I will need to open Studio back up for it to re-see the connection before it actually does it. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Like when I was doing Restream Studio, it doesn't matter. Restream's really good about making that connection, but I've been using Beam lately, and for whatever reason, that connection demands that I reopen Studio, even though I'm still using the same stream key. But yes, you can close Studio once you've started, for sure. There are reasons you might want it, though.
Okay, cool. All right. Although I guess the other thing too is you probably like even if you close the studio, if there are live viewers, and there may not be because you're literally just trying this out right now, but I guess you kind of want to think a little bit about how you're monitoring and responding to chat comments if they are coming in.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways of bringing the YouTube chat into OBS, which if you've linked it the way Kiki did, it should have automatically popped out that chat window. I know Twitch does. I don't remember if the YouTube brings that out automatically, but you can make that into one of the docs of OBS as well.
Absolutely.
The thing that you can't, that's really nice, is the YouTube highlighter if you want to make clips on the fly. But that's a whole other live stream. And it looks like we've gone over our time, by the way.
Okay, so say it says make sure to end your stream properly if you don't want to stream 8 hours of you sleeping. It's one of those things. Because I kind of use the virtual camera, I will often record in OBS as a bit of a backup. And there have been times where I've forgotten to stop recording at the end of it, and I'll just have a 3-hour video, and the first hour is me doing stuff, and the second 2 hours is like just nothing. So yes, you do want to be a little bit mindful of that as well. But yes, as we begin to wrap up, Sam, where can people find you? What's your content? All that good stuff.
Yeah, head over to samproof.tv. You'll find all of my social links at the top left there. And if you haven't seen enough cats today, head over to cuteavalanche.com and find the 24/7 stream. And you can find them on any of the social platforms as Cute Avalanche as well.
Nice. And if you want to catch up with me, you can head over to johnlacey.com. I got the podcast, a whole bunch of articles about different things over there as well. And you can find social links to places I hang out like YouTube and LinkedIn especially. Check me out over there. And again, we've got some quality cat stuff happening right now. Farquad writes, I just need to be careful with the BRB screen. I streamed that for an hour while I was playing until a chatter told me. It is interesting because I mentioned Chantel Hills earlier. She decided to try OBS for the first time in many, many years. And we were all just hanging out in the chat waiting for it to start. And someone's like, I really hope she starts soon. And she kind of thought she'd already gone live. But apparently there was a second option to select in YouTube Studio to make that happen. So if you can sort of wrangle somebody in to watch live and give you feedback, that's always good. I've certainly done entire presentations where I discovered at the end I've been muted the entire time. So there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. But yes, Kiki, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate, all the feedback, and it sounds like you've learned a few things, so that's always exciting.
Yeah. And we're here every Friday.
Unless you're in a different time zone, because in Australia it's Saturday morning, but
Saturday.
But just look for the invites wherever you happen to be. And I will say too, I'm doing a coffee and content stream tomorrow, roughly the same time as today's stream, where I'm going to be doing stuff in DaVinci Resolve. So if you want to watch me drink coffee and hang out and chat, you can certainly head over to the Learn Live Streaming YouTube channel, and we'll take it from there. But until then, have a great week, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again very, very soon.